Hello, my friends. It is Saturday, 21 December 2024. I have 12 big stories for you today, so we're going to get right into it. So, according to preliminary data, 60 to 80 people were injured yesterday, December 20th, when a car drove into a crowd of people at a Christmas market in the German city of Magdeburg. Okay, so what we know about this is nothing related to the Russians at this point. It seems like this guy just was a little crazy. Maybe he was somehow attached to the AfD, the far right party in Germany, but I don't know if that was a motivation. But it doesn't seem like, despite what I've said yesterday about like, hey, the world's burning and Russia is the heat source, for a lot of things it is, but not necessarily everything. Nevertheless, Zelensky came out and said, we are all appalled by the terrible reports of as German medics fight to save the lives after a horrific onslaught at a Christmas market in Magdeburg, Germany. Violence must never prevail anywhere. We all pray that medics will be successful in saving the lives of severely injured people. It's critical that all circumstances and motivation of the attacker be established. But again, we don't know that it's anything connected to the Russians, and it doesn't appear to be at this point. Okay, EU sets a record for importing Russian gas. Yeah, you heard me right. The EU is setting a record for importing Russian gas. By mid-2024, imports reach 16.5 million tons, making up 20% of the market. The largest importers are France and Belgium. A ban on such operations is expected in March of 2025. And there are ways to get around this, but you just have to have the political will. Meanwhile, fuel oil continues to wash up on the beaches of Russia's resort cities after the wreck involving two Vologda tankers last Sunday. There was a big storm. These tankers are not in the best shape. This is the shadow fleet, not like what is sanctioned. So according to Russian authorities, cleaning up the shoreline will take at least a month, although the oil will likely continue to wash up for many months depending on the sea currents. So Greenpeace and Bologna warn that the continued operations of the Russian shadow fleet, which consists of outdated, uninsured vessels, will inevitably lead to more disasters like this, but even on a bigger scale. And these guys are just like shoveling up big quantities of oil and putting it in trash bags and trying to dispose of it, get it off the beach. I saw videos of dolphins that were dead and that sort of thing. It's pretty tragic. Okay, here's a satellite image of the Kuban beaches with the polluted fuel oil after two sank last week. Here's the before and here's the after. It's like you can see it with satellite imagery. Okay, next story. A statue of Stalin is unveiled in Russia. This is a step towards sober and balanced view of our past. Respecting history means respecting yourself, wrote the governor of that area. Now, 2 months before the event, 3,000 city residents signed a petition opposing the installation of the monument. Now, I remember reporting that something like 90-something of about 110 statues to Stalin have gone up since Putin came into office. And I couldn't find the actual article, so I looked at it on Grok. I just asked Grok to the same question, how many monuments to Stalin have gone up under Putin? So this is a little sketchy just because it's AI, but it verifies what I already remembered. Under Vladimir Putin's presidency, approximately 95 monuments to Joseph Stalin have been erected in Russia. This number reflects a significant increase in the pace of monument construction, particularly noted to have doubled after the annexation of Crimea in 2014. So Putin is doing that, and it's an intentional thing to show strength and kind of harken back to the past. Okay, meanwhile, Russian propagandists continue to talk about their Orishnik saber rattling, following Putin's statements about high-tech duel with the West. Any target on the territory of Ukraine or NATO member states in Europe will be hit with 100% probability, they say. Okay, here's what they say. We don't know how the negotiation process with Trump will play out, but it's absolutely obvious that we need a stockpile of high-tech weapons at this point. Stop. Hear what they're saying. We thought before the election they were going to be saying, "Yay, Trump's in office, and now Trump's in power. He's going to do whatever Putin wants, and it's going to be sunshine and roses." They're not saying that. They're really not saying that. First of all, of course, Orishnik KH-69 cruise missiles and all the rest of the nomenclature with the help of which we will be able to change the situation very quickly in geopolitical and military political terms. I think that the Russian leadership understands this task. The defense industrial complex of Russia will be able to solve this problem, and thus we will have several key trump cards on the negotiating table, which Putin will be able to put on the table in order to make Americans understand that it is a necessity to reach an agreement on mutually acceptable terms. Of course, those mutually acceptable terms are that Russia gets to keep those 4 oblasts that they just stole from Ukraine, and Ukraine can't be in NATO. And after that, mutually accepted terms. In this respect, of course, Orishnik is an absolute weapon. There are no means of counteraction. Okay, so they just go on and on about the Orishnik. It's like the new nuclear. Okay, Steve Rosenberg from the BBC posted this. Roadside Putin. This is a gigantic electronic billboard in Moscow displaying quotes from Putin's marathon Q&A press session. And it says things like this: if non-nuclear states will, like their allies, create a threat to our sovereignty, to Russia's existence, we reserve the right to use nuclear weapons against them. I wish soldiers along the whole front line success, victory, then return home. So you're seeing the propaganda machine in full campaign mode even after a campaign in Russia. Meanwhile, the Russian economy isn't doing so well. 37.62 euros for a pound of cherries in Moscow. I don't know about you, but it costs maybe $4 or $5 for a pound of cherries. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't bought cherries for a while. In where I live in the United States, 37 euros for a pound of cherries sounds a little excessive. And Michael McFall's comment was, but everything is just fine with the Russian economy, so we're told. Yeah, I mean, they keep telling themselves that. Meanwhile, the Czech Republic is looking at banning Russians from obtaining citizenship. That's because they understand what I was saying yesterday, that the world is burning and Russia is the heat source. Meanwhile, the people of Georgia are still outside in the streets protesting. It's still going on. Like, just because we haven't talked about it doesn't mean that that's not still happening. Okay, let's turn to the United States. The Biden administration would like to announce the final $1.2 billion aid package for Ukraine, focusing on air defense and artillery in the near future. So it's going to happen. They're going to complete this, and there's still drawdown authority that Biden has as well that he can spend on aid to Ukraine. Now, this article got a lot of attention yesterday. Trump plans to continue supplying Ukraine with U.S. weapons after the inauguration. According to the Financial Times, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump intends to maintain U.S. military support for Ukraine after his inauguration on January 20th. According to 3 sources who were briefed on discussions with Western officials, Trump plans to continue supplying Ukraine with U.S. military aid following his inauguration. The 3 sources added that while Trump believes that Ukraine should never become a NATO member and wants immediate end to the war, he views continued arms supplies to Kyiv as a means to achieve peace through strength. Okay, well, I don't like doesn't want them to become a NATO member, but that he's willing to supply, that's a positive sign. And here's the headline from the Financial Times. Trump wants 5% NATO defense spending target. That's something significant. That is potentially game-changing as well. Meanwhile, Tucker Carlson is claiming that any Republican senator who opposes the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard is an enemy of the United States. You've got to hear this for yourself.
By the way, if she was a foreign agent, how exactly is she carrying a gun in the U.S. military? It's absurd. You will know who's on which side by the reaction of Tulsi Gabbard. If there are Republican senators who are voting against Tulsi Gabbard's confirmation, then you, either in the Intel Committee or in the Open Senate, you will know that person is not only my enemy as someone who voted for change, for openness, for transparency, for an end to corruption, for a draining of the swamp. You know that person is an enemy of the United States. Period.
Wow. An enemy of the United States just because they oppose this nomination. Now, you also saw in the Wall Street Journal the other day that the Republicans, like around Trump's circle, were calling people like me, Republicans who are pre-Trump era Reagan Republicans, rhinos. That rhino means R-I-N-O, Republican in name only. And that was used to talk about Republicans who were actually pretty much liberal or progressive. That's not what they're talking about. They're saying if you're not embracing this new populist orthodoxy, you're not really a Republican. But I'm what you were before you got here. Like, I'm still the Reagan Republican that I always was. So there's going to be a fight for the soul of the Republican Party after the Trump administration. Okay, a new Ukrainian ambassador to Hungary is the famous Professor Fyodor Shandor, an ethnic Hungarian who used to give lectures to his students online in the trenches as a soldier. That's pretty hardcore. Now, this is interesting, and it caught my attention just because of the drone use, because drones can be used for many things. Experts warn Kosovo will lose all healthy forests within a decade. So environmentalists are using drones to drop seeds to slow down the process and help reforestation before it's too late. Yeah, how about that? So, like, I've seen drones being used to deliver aid to the front line, food and water to soldiers to get it there because they had no other means of getting it there because trying to get humans to drive it there would be so dangerous. So, yeah, how about that? Now, Christmas is coming, and Twitter wants you to know that you can buy your Twitter hat before it sells out. I don't think that they need to really worry about them selling out. I don't see a great demand for Twitter apparel. I've never seen anyone wearing anything with Twitter on it. But Darth Putin says that some imperialists put this on his Christmas list. It's a little hanging ornament of a scooter. And after this last week, you understand the reason why. Okay, finally, we'll end with this. Darth Putin, on day 132 of my 3-day war, inflation will be solved by ensuring that Russians not killed in Ukraine have nothing to buy. I remain a master strategist. All right, my friends, that's all that I have. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes and the shares and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.